Hey, welcome back everybody. This is Jordan with PictureMonk.com. Here to show you a tutorial video on HDR, and I normally don't do a whole lot of HDR, and if I do, it's not a straight HDR. I usually blend it with a neutral exposure, or blend it with a couple different images, and so it's not a full-fledged HDR. But I wanted to go ahead and show you how I can normally go through this process, and the ending result is going to look somewhat like this photo you see here. So as you can tell, it's a little bit different from what we're starting out with, which this is what we're starting out with. You can tell it's got some stuff on my lens here that I was shooting with. It's got a little couple things here, but it's a 3 bracketed image. So that was the neutral, underexposed, and the overexposed. So we're going to go through converting it to HDR, bringing it back in Photoshop, cleaning it up, and then applying some cool little effects to it to just kind of show you some different options you can take. So let's go ahead and get started. So I use Photomatix 5.0.1 for all my HDR, so I'll just bring that into Photomatix and just do the HDR tone mapping. And just click OK. And I usually take mine on a tripod. In this instance, it was on a tripod. And then I'll remove the chromatic aberration. And so you don't necessarily have to do this if you're using one of the recent versions of Photoshop, because it has a really good chromatic aberration removal tool. But I just have always left it checked, so I'll just leave it there and just let it do its thing. Alright, just blended them. Now it's taking the chromatic aberration process. It's doing that, and we should have our image shortly. Alright, and there we go. So as you can see, it's pretty HDR. It's pretty over the top. And I usually just change mine to default. Sometimes I like some of these other presets that it has in there. I'll just play around with them and look at them. I normally don't use them, but I'll just keep mine at default. And what I'll do is I may change some stuff in here, like the micro smoothing. I'll go ahead and take that up a bit, and then maybe take the white point up. Don't want to mess with any of that. Detail contrast, might do that. I'll actually take that away. And that's about all I'll do for that. So I'll just click apply, and it'll generate the TIFF file. Alright, we have our TIFF file, and even though I'm going to do sharpening in Photoshop, I will do extra sharpening here. So I'll usually just do mild sharpening, and then I won't mess with the contrast or color. So let's go ahead and click done here. And then we'll go ahead and save this. So I'll save it just on my desktop, because I'm going to bring it back into Photoshop. So, alright, so we can get rid of all of that. And now we're going to drag this into Photoshop. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is clean up our image. So I'm going to, this is going to be super easy. I'm going to grab my lasso tool. Normally I would do all my adjustments on a new layer, so it's non-destructive, but I'm not going to ever want to change this. So I'll just lasso around that. It doesn't have to be perfect, and then hit the delete key. And that'll bring up the content aware fill options. And you just click content aware, click OK, and let it do its thing. And done. And then we'll do the same thing over this little spot here. Hit the delete, content aware. Alright, to deselect on a Mac, it's Command D, and there you go, cleaned up. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to do some of our basic edits. So If I'm using a TIFF file, in this instance, I usually go into filter and then camera raw filter. I really like editing my stuff in camera raw, even though I won't have the exact same options as I would processing a raw file. At least I'll be able to be familiar with most of these options, and it's kind of a time saver sort of thing. So first thing I'll do is my sharpening. If you watched my other sharpening video or have read my sharpening post on picturemonk.com, my default values are 100 for the amount and then 1.5 for the radius, and you can see the difference in that. And then my white balance, I'm just going to eyeball most of this stuff, kind of make it a warmer image. I might bring up my shadows just a tiny bit, highlights, don't want to go too crazy with those. I'll bring up my clarity a bit because the clarity is going to look nice on the brick. I don't want to go too over the top like that, but I'll bring it up a little bit. Vibrance just a touch. Let's see, what else can we do? I think I'm okay with that for now. Maybe bump the contrast up a bit. Yeah, let's do it right around there. All right, so I'm happy with the way that was looking there. Oh, I do want to do my, not chromatic aberration. I want to do my, yeah, do I want to do chromatic? I already did it. I'll just leave it there. So I'm good with the way that looks. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And let that render the new changes. There we go. All right, so I want to sort of make this photo look sort of old-timey, retro sort of thing. So one easy way to do that is to give a layer style. And you're going to do that directly on the image, but it will be non-destructive. So your layer will be locked here, so all you got to do is unclick the layer, and now your layer is unlocked. So you can make any changes you want to it. So just double click on your image, bring up the color overlay option, and let's go ahead and pick a color. I'm probably going to go with a bluish color right there, and then change your blending mode to exclusion. That does not look good, but we're going to back our opacity down to around 25, 30. I'm probably going to leave it around 30, right there. So as you can see, it kind of gives it a retro tone. The warmth that we applied in the camera raw filter really helps with this because it's still sort of a warmer image, but overall it's got that cool tone to it. And then I'm going to also do a levels layer just to add a little bit more contrast. I don't want to go crazy. So I'm just going to, what I'm doing here is I'm bringing up the levels and then I'm holding the Option key on a Mac, I think it's Alt on a PC, and clicking on the black handle here. And that turns it white, but as you slide, it starts bringing back some of the image. So that way you can tell when stuff is getting too harsh. So obviously if I bring it in here, that's not going to look good. It's going to look like that. So you want to bring it back to where you can sort of make out the details in the photo. So as you can see, I can make out the handrails there. So I'll just leave it there. Same thing with the whites. I want to bring that back. There's a section over there where the sun was coming down and it's going to start blowing out here in just a little bit right about there. So I'm going to leave it there. So it just adds a little more pop to the image. You can tell the difference there. And let's see, one more detail. This is just kind of like a fun sort of thing. I want to make it look like the sun was actually kind of kissing the side of the building here. So the way we do that is we can apply, let's see, we can apply where's it? A render. There it is. Oh, we gotta get on this layer. Get on that layer there. We can actually make a duplicate of that because we want to make sure that's there the way it is and make sure it stays to where we can always come back to it. Get right here, click render, and then lens flare. I normally don't use the lens flare options a lot, but in this type of scenario, it might work out a little bit. You can kind of get a small idea of what it might look like. That lens flare there, not too crazy about it. It's kind of like a Michael Bay lens flare. We want to go to lens flare. If I ever do it, I like the 105 millimeter. It's just kind of like a white burst. You can also do this with a brush, but just for this scenario, we'll do it this way. You can see where it's going to be. Increase it to where it's not. You don't want it like that, obviously, but just to where it's, you know, a hint of a kiss of the sun, and we'll see how that looks. It's a little too much, so we'll go back and we'll knock it down to about 115. There we go. I kind of like that. Like I said, you can do it with a brush. It's just, you know, if you just want a white burst, there it is. So I like the way that looks. There you go. That's the image. It's kind of like a retro feel, but it's also an HDR. It doesn't look over the top HDR, but it still brings back some of the detail in the sky and some of the detail in the brick. So, all right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will talk to you guys later, and be sure to visit the website at picturemonk.com. See ya.